Welcome back, everyone, to The Pulse, where we debate in English, and the points are like arcade tokens. They have no cash value. Guys, if you're just joining us, once again, we're going to explain the format of today's show. We're going to be discussing all kinds of news and storylines, but it's going to be mainly a discussion between our guests today, Ben, Mr. Peter Nickel, as well as Kevin Rotterdam van der Kooi. Guys, we're going to be discussing lots of cool stuff on the news, but let's explain the format. The way On The Wire is going to work is that I'll be throwing out a news piece, and then I'll be posing a couple questions. From there, you guys will both have 1 minute to respond. But in each segment, you guys have one opportunity to rebut. So for example, if Kevin goes first and says, I think this is really good, and Ben says, you know what, I don't think you, I think you are stupid, and then Kev can say, I want to use my one-time rebuttal and say, no, Ben, you're stupid. And I'd be like, plus 5 points, Kev.
Rebuttal. I'm going to rebuttal Ben all night long.
You only get one rebuttal, bro.
No, I'm going to rebuttal many times.
You lose points if you rebuttal too many times.
All right.
That's right. You can interrupt, but keep in mind that I control the points. I'm the decider. So be nice to me. I know you guys always pick on me on the set.
I love your hair today. I love your hair today, man.
Oh, thank you, Kev. That might earn you minus 2 points. Words don't bribe me, money does. Guys, it's time to go on the wire. In the words of Marvin Gaye, let's get it on. After weeks of speculation, beloved Frenchman Ilias Stefano Retires has announced that he will not return to Korea to participate in the next GSL Code S season, nor will he participate in round 4 of Pro League for EGTL. This news does not surprise many, considering several recent interviews has revealed Stefano to be very unhappy with his stay in the EGTL house. Stefano has recently traveled to a few international events, but has not performed to his standards, placing top 12 at IEM Worlds and top 32 at MLG Winter Championships. In a moving behind-the-scenes documentary, Stefano has announced that he also intends to retire after 6 months of StarCraft 2, citing, quote, "It's good to know when to stop." This brings up a few questions. Has Korea helped Stefano at all? And if Stefano retires, will he have any major impact in the last 6 months? And lastly, what will happen to the legitimacy of the foreign scene once Stefano retires? Ben, you're on the wire. 1 minute.
All right, 1 minute. Let's get through this. Obviously, Korea has been good for Stefano. Anybody that spends that amount of time practicing on that rigorous schedule, as we know Stefano has, he's gone on the record saying, this amount of practice is driving me crazy. I'm so bored. I want to go back to Europe where my friends are so I can hang out, I can party. But he has been practicing. He's been working very hard, and we know without question that he's improving. That said, for him on a personal level, he's unhappy. That's why he's going to be going back home. What happens to the legitimacy of the foreign scene when Stefano does finally retire? It goes away. It's kaput. There are no more challengers that can take on these Koreans. We have reached the point in the life of StarCraft 2 where the Koreans are too good. You're not going to see any more foreign champions at tournaments where you have reasonable Korean representation, and that makes me a little bit sad, but also very happy to celebrate the achievements of the great foreigners that we have had.
And that is a 1 minute timer. Very well said, Benny. No, I think that really pains you to say, also considering that you were called Mr. Bias for foreigners. I'm really interested to see what Kev has to say. Kev, you're on the wire. 1 minute.
I completely disagree with Ben, actually. I do not think that Korea has been all that good for Stefano. Sure, he probably had good practice. Then again, the practice that he got in Europe was never bad for him, as he still managed to get up to that Korean level, win the foreign tournaments. Stefano has always done well in his way. And if he's doing fine in his way, why would you want to put him in another circumstance in which doesn't just suit him all that well? He doesn't work the way that some other people do. We have tried to explain this many times. We also thought that Stefano not practicing a lot was a fairy tale until we saw him here at the office for 8 days before WCS Europe. He didn't play a single game, went to Europe 1 day too late, arrived the morning he had to play the tournament after a 15-hour schedule, and he won. Stefano somehow doesn't work like everyone else does, so no, I do not think that Korea has been good for Stefano. He hasn't posted any noticeable results. Sure, he did okay in Pro League, but he said himself, it's not something that he feels like generally very excited or very proud about. Last but not least, regarding the Stefano retirement issue, I do not believe that Ilias is going to retire in 6 months. I believe that after that we're going to see at least 6 more months, maybe even a year. Ilias is going to do fine in the near future, not because of his career practice, but because he's Ilias.
Strong points.
I'm going to come out swinging with the
already
rebuttal right away.
Already? Are you sure,
get this out
Ben?
of the way because I knew that Kevin was going to take that stance, and this is what it boils down to. Stefano, I know you're watching, and I'm sorry for saying this. It pains me to do so, but your success, as brilliant as it was based on the fact that nobody had figured out your style. You were the first to do something, and you were able to ride that novelty to great success with championships and lots of prize money won and a great deal of fandom. But the fact remains, once your play styles got figured out, you got hammered, man, time and time again. And we're even starting to see it happen as you go and compete in these foreign events and you're losing to players that a lot of us want to believe you're better than that you're better than. The time has passed. You said it well in your interview. It's good to know when to stop. You've been a great champion, Stefano, but the time has come.
Ben, I'm going to use your last 15 seconds to ask you one quick thing. What about Stefano still innovating with things like Roach Hydra and then Pro League Zergs copying that for their matches in Wings of Liberty?
Hey, you know what? I think that's great, but I think the fact is that the results speak for themselves at this point in Stefano's career, and we're just not seeing him anymore.
Re-rebuttal.
Re-rebuttal. Yes. Wow, you guys are using all the turbo immediately as possible. Kev, you have 1 minute.
I completely disagree with Ben. He makes it sound like Elias was a one-hit wonder who one time won a tournament and everyone saw his style, and after that he didn't win anything anymore. In 1 month he won 2 majors, and after that he continued being dominant for more than a year. And if you look at those games, it wasn't that Stefano was the only player in the world playing a certain style. That's really nonsense. Stefano won most of his games because of even not flawless macro, but somehow he put himself in positions where his macro was better than his opponents. His engagements, we've watched his stream so many times and just oh my God, Stefano, how are you winning that fight? Because his engagement is what made him the best. And for instance, his rivalry with Polt. Basically, you're saying, oh, Polt lost to Stefano 1 time. After that, he will never lose again. If anything, it was the opposite. Polt beat Stefano. After that, Stefano beat Polt quite a few times. So how come that Polt wasn't able to figure out Stefano? Because Stefano was just that good. What you say is not true in my opinion.
Excellent points, guys. Overall, I do have to agree more with Kev, though. Stefano is truly an exception to everything. Even what you said, exception to practice, exception to expectations, an exceptional guy. I really hope he sticks around the 3rd time. Right now, he's about to retire 2 more times. Stefano is not the only news coming out of Korea. With him not returning back to the EG lab, that means last will get the last Code SC. Thank you. I'll be here all night. Well, as Code S has been announced a round of 32 groups. I've already earned the disapproval of Ben and Kev with that. That's why I need a script writer, guys. All right, April 4th, GSL will resume. I am super excited, especially because the round of 32 groups has been released. GOM TV has said that this is one of their most excited seasons yet because with the new studio coming in, they have an absolute must-watch season for StarCraft 2 fans with increased production and a blooming rivalry between ESF and KESPA players. Here are the 8 GSL groups as well as their schedule. Is coming up in a couple seconds. One thing that I really want to ask you guys are, what are some of the biggest stories in GSL this season? What will be the most exciting group to watch, or even the group of death? Let's kick it off with you, Kevin. 1 minute.
I really like Group B, the group with MC, Dongray, Gu, Yoda, and Flying, just because Flying is kind of a dark horse for me. MC was weak at IEM, but then bounced back really strong at Dallas. Of course, DRG, we're also excited to see him play hard with the Swarm, and Yoda is our current Intel Extreme Masters World Champion. So I think that's a fantastic group, but not my favorite. My favorite group is, let me double check, yes, Group F, with, in my opinion, the best Terran in the world right now, Innovation, and the best Protoss in the world, Rain. Combine that we have the fact that Hyun is in there. Hyun, who was close to unstoppable in the last days of Wings of Liberty, so I am very eager to see him in HUTS and see what he can do. And then we have Gumio, that Terran that's been around for so long, has never really won a tournament, but has often played absolutely fantastic games that we remember for a long time. So Group F is my group to watch.
Last question, follow-up. Do you think Gumio will do very well even in the upcoming tournaments in DreamHack? He's about to travel for the first time.
I think he's going to surprise people, yes. Then again, DreamHack, you're always going to need a little bit of luck, because if you run into someone who's really strong in the round of 16, you might not have the run that you could have potentially had, which goes for most tournaments, of course. But I think Gumio will twist some heads, yes.
All right, cool. We'll talk more about DreamHack in a little bit. We're focusing back on GSL. Ben, you have 1 minute. Who are you hyping?
Gumi Ho? I think you mean Gumi Hu.
Oh!
Definitely the big stories for this next GSL will be I guess the final confrontation, ESF versus Kespa. We've had our first ever Kespa champion in the last GSL in Roro. Will he repeat? Will more Kespa pros rise to the top? I predict that yes, they will. There are some fantastic groups. The one Kevin picked is great, but because of Gumi Hu, I do think it is going to ultimately fall flat. There are stronger groups. Group G is a big one that everybody's going to point to. Parting Last, Lenok, and Life. That is just incredible. My big group to watch, however, is the reigning champions group. Group A, Roro and Crazy, a guy that some people might not be that familiar with, but he's been a absolute monster in the Pro League. Creator Prime also holding it down, and Bomber, his TVZ, has been turning some heads recently, certainly with the most recent MLGs, and I am very excited to see how Group A plays out. I do not think that it is at all possible to predict who goes first, second in that group because it is so deep.
I really hope that Ben loses
Hey,
all the points.
Have any
No.
more
No,
rebuttals.
it's not a
Keep your
rebuttal.
mouth shut. You're
It's not a
done. You've
rebuttal.
had your time.
It's not a rebuttal, just a small comment. If Gumio actually ends up passing the group or winning DreamHack, I want Ben to lose
Okay.
all the points.
Minus 15 points for Kevin for speaking out of turn.
Oh my
Out of
God.
turn, out of line, and out of luck. -5. But Kev, your point was heard. Other news in Korea, we have EG making more waves in Pro League. We talk about GSL, but Pro League is also another important league. EG has recently signed Alive and Oz. This is after signing Coach Park in a declaration that help is on the way. EG has signed the IPL 4 champion as well as the quarterfinalist from the OSL, both formerly of Team Fnatic. A lot of foreigners are kind of skeptical about EGTL's performance in round number 4. How do you predict they'll do with these signings? Will the signing have an impact at all?
Yes, there is obviously going to be an impact. Now they have 2 more Korean players that they can call on, and that's a big deal. The foreign representation for EGTL has been pretty non-existent. Again, guys, the scene has developed past foreigner levels. I'm sorry, I hate to say it. Mr. Bias himself comes out and says that the Koreans are too good to beat right now, and it's just a fact of the matter. Heart of the Swarm made the game harder, and we're not going to be seeing these Cinderella stories anymore. That's just the fact of the matter. That said, I am not very impressed with the choice to sign Alive. What has he done? We know he's had some success, and then he was on Fnatic for a long period of time. Then Fnatic let him go, and finally he's relevant again. I don't think it's going to continue. I think Alive is going to fall a little bit flat in the Pro League simply because the Kespa teams are so much farther along. Maybe Coach Park can turn it around, but EGTL will not be making the playoffs. They're too far behind, and sadly, it's going to be the first time I think Coach Park has ever not had a playoff appearance in the Pro League.
Ooh, strong prediction against a man with proven history. Kev, I know you have a mouthful in response to that. 1 minute, you're on the wire.
I mean, playoff is going to be very, very, very tough for EGTL with their current record. I'm not sure if even Oz and Alive can that turn around. But Ben, Alive had some success. When Alive won IPL 4, I think we all pretty much agreed that was one of the strongest, if not the strongest tournament up to that date. Alive won that tournament, and that was not like just an on-the-fly thing. He just played super solid throughout the entire tournament. Ever since then, yes, it's been quiet around Alive.
2 years ago. Excuse me.
Oh. Not even 2 years ago. It's not even a year ago. It was April 2012. But that was a rebuttal, minus 15 points at least. So I actually think that Alive is going to do really quite well. It's been silent around him, but he's proven in the past he had talent. When I think of Oz, I think of the MLG runs that he had back then. That cool series he had against Stefano. Oz was the only Pro Tools ever back then to beat Stefano right after Stefano won NASL Season 3 against all those Korean Pro Toolers. I think both these guys are going to do really quite well. I mean, 80% win records or something is going to be very hard to achieve for anyone. But I think both of them should at least be able to score positive, which means that both of them should be able to contribute to some Clan War points, which should mean that they actually win some Clan Wars.
Maybe
If everyone wins their first match,
1-4 instead of 0-4.
no.
Is
I
that a
think-
success?
I think they will do quite well, and I think those are pretty good signings.
All right, Kev. Well, thank you so much for your opinion.
Yeah, I do want to say that I agree
Kev,
with Kev
you
on
bet
Oz. I
you've-
think Oz is a great pickup, and I think he's got some promise. I'd love to see him win some games for him.
Thank you for that, Ben, as well as your 10 points. I love that. Thank you very much. Guys, Korea is not the only place where Heart of the Swarm action is taking place. We also have stuff that happened just last weekend, the ESET UK Masters. Snoot won the tournament after a stunning performance, defeating Haswab's Baby Knight and Sting in the finals. Snoot earns 4,000 pounds and silences his critics that only just a few months ago labeled him a patchzerg. Sting took home a hefty prize of 2,000 pounds. Hero Marine would take third place, earning a solid 1K. That's quite a sum of money for a 15-year-old youngster out of Germany, if I do so say myself. For our last big news piece of On the Wire, I want to talk about the other storylines in this tournament. Ben, Kev, everyone always talks about Snoot, his skill, his dominance, but I want to ask, what are some of the other really cool stories that are coming out of this tournament that are under the radar? We'll start with you, Kev. 1 minute.
First of all, I kind of want to focus on something negative, but 4GG, come on, man. Like, we're expecting more from you. You were a legendary Boudoir player. You've been in Europe for quite a while, as far as I know. He's doing so well on ladder. Then he doesn't even pass a group, in my opinion, one of the easiest groups in the tournament, losing to Johnny Recco and Baby Knight, while later on Hero Marine, for instance, takes out Johnny Recco or Rico. Come on, you should do better than that. One other note as well, Crank. We all loved Crank back then at MLG. It was a sweetheart story. He did so well. Got picked up by Toto Biscuit. It's awesome. But he's had that perfect practice environment for quite a while now already. Went to the tournament and actually barely went through in the easiest group of the tournament, Group C, and then immediately lost 3-0 to Sting. I mean, come on. If you fly from Korea, if you're in a team house for a while, you should do better than that. Last but not least, I want to focus on the good. Of course, Hero Marine finishing third in this tournament. That's really impressive. That's fantastic. He's still so young, taking out more established players. And also a small shout out to Liquid Red for once more pretty consistent performance, winning his group 5-0. He lost to Sting, but no shame in that.
Lots of great storylines. I couldn't agree more about a lot of them. Koreans, very disappointing. Ben, what are some of the other under-radar stories?
You know, I just want to come out and say, first and foremost, that I never called Snoot a patchzerg. I always said that he has a unique play style and that it will carry over to Heart of the Swarm. A lot of people called me crazy. I think on this very show, some people rolled their eyes at me. But Snoot has continued to show that his spin on RTS and StarCraft 2 is strong no matter what expansion we're playing on. That said, I think Snoot is what a lot of us hoped TLO would be. Looking at this tournament, TLO, a lot of people saying, hey, this is a guy who's very unique. He's really going to shine in Heart of the Swarm. He's going to come out. He's going to turn some heads. He won his group. That's awesome. I'm very happy for TLO. But then he goes on to get eliminated from the tournament. I'm a little bit disappointed by that. What I am very pleased to see is the person who beat him, the Baby Knight, continuing to post consistent results and establishing himself as one of the top Protoss players in Europe. The Baby Knight, I can remember casting him in Go for SC2 when he was playing on Wednesdays when he didn't even win prize money. That guy has come so far, and I do think that he will continue to be a considerable force in the European StarCraft 2 scene.
Woo. Love that argument, Ben. Not only are you a hipster, not calling Snoot a patchzerg, but you also brought out really good point. Everyone was hoping that hype behind TLO would finally be realized, but Snoot realizing that hope. Excellent job. And let's do a little point check, actually, shall we? After the first round of play, Ben is currently in the lead, 442
Who's
to
in charge of this?
252. I am. Excuse me, 242 for Kevin. Guys, we'll be back. When we come back against the odds, we're going to talk about speculate upcoming events. This is the Sunday Polls. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back in 2 minutes.